my channel. I'm so stoked about today's video, but before we jump right into it, I wanted to say thank you so much for over 2,000 subscribers. You guys are absolutely amazing, and I don't think I could literally ever thank all of you enough. I know I say this every video, and as I always say, I will continue to thank you for your awesome support. And because of the growth in subscribers, and because I've never done this on this channel yet, I decided that so you guys could get to know me a little bit better, I want to do a get to know me Q&A for next Wednesday's video. That being said, you can ask me whatever you want. If you want to ask me like weird questions, fine, go for it, sure, I'm all down for that. But I've already asked on Twitter, I will ask on Snapchat as well. If you guys want to leave any questions you have down below, feel free. If you want to use the hashtag AskDanielle on Twitter, go ahead and do that. And then also, I will have my Snapchat right here. If you guys want to send me a video question and be featured in next week's video, you are also more than welcome to do that. I just feel like with these videos, it's very serious situations and I can't really like fully be myself, and I feel like you guys don't really know who I am and I can't stand that like at all. So that being said, I really wanted to do this Q&A for you guys, and I hope you guys are excited about it. So today's video is on the tube sock murders, and this one, I had never heard of this until I stumbled upon it just a few days ago. And the more I read into it, the more freaked out I became, because it is highly likely that the killer is still out there. So on August 10th, 1985, 27-year-old Stephen Harkins and his girlfriend, 42-year-old Ruth Cooper, decided to go on a weekend camping trip. The camping trip was around Tacoma at Tule Lake. They stayed at a pretty remote campsite and everything seemed to be fine. They were super excited about it, but they never showed up to work that following Monday. 4 days later, on August the 14th, Harkins' body was found. And he was actually found still in his sleeping bag in his tent, shot to death, which insinuates that he was probably killed while he was sleeping. However, Ruth was nowhere to be found, and only a few feet away, unfortunately, which breaks my heart, was their dog that had also been shot to death. There was absolutely no sign of Ruth until October the 26th, where she was found 1.5 miles away. Found Ruth with a tube sock tied around her neck. They couldn't decide if they thought she had been strangled to death. She also had a gunshot wound to her stomach. Some thought the gunshot wound caused her death, others thought strangulation caused her death, but either way, both of them had been brutally killed. That then leads us to December the 12th of 1985. So 36-year-old Mike Rymer was a trapper, and he had different locations where he set up his traps all around the Tacoma area. And him and his girlfriend, 21-year-old Diana Robertson, and their 2-year-old daughter, Crystal, decided to go find a Christmas tree. So they all piled in the car. He figured it was a great opportunity to check on his traps, so they all headed out to the forest. Later on that afternoon, Crystal was actually found wandering around a Kmart. She seemed really quiet, kind of confused and distressed, and it actually took a while for them to figure out who she belonged to. They tried questioning her at the station, asking her where her parents were. She seemed to have absolutely no idea, wouldn't open up to the police officers, so they decided to go ahead and circulate her picture all around the news. And that's when Diana's mother came forward and said, "I am her grandmother. What in the world is going on?" When she was reunited with her grandmother and her grandmother asked her where her parents were, all that Crystal could say is, "Mommy is in the trees." And if that doesn't give you goosebumps, then something's very wrong with you. So a bunch of friends and family knew very well that Mike was a trapper, and they decided to go all along where his traps were just to get any information they could to see maybe if they'd been visited recently, if they'd just been sitting there for a really long time, kind of to try to figure out if he'd even been there that day that they went missing. And they found absolutely nothing. Months later, Diana's body was found really deep in the forest in Elbe, Washington. She had been stabbed 17 times, and ironically enough was also found with a tube sock tied around her neck. At this point, they looked all over the place trying to find Mike. They couldn't find him anywhere, and that's when Mike kind of got thrown under the bus. They ended up finding Mike's truck nearby, and the front seat was covered in blood, but it appeared as if the truck had not ever moved. There was also a note found on the dash. I personally don't think it's of much importance, but some people think it's a huge key to the case. It said, "I love you, Diana," on it. A lot of people think maybe it was written by Mike or written by whoever killed them. Maybe it was like a love crime. I'm not really sure. Thought I'd throw it in there just in case. But the truck hadn't been moved. So the truck essentially drove up to where they went to look for their Christmas tree and had not driven away. So that led them to think, how did Crystal get to Kmart? Where did Mike go? He obviously had to travel by foot, and Mike was instantly named a suspect in all of these cases. So Mike was actually known for some domestic violence. He tended to have some anger issues, did not have the cleanest history, so they thought it was very, very likely that Mike had committed every single one of these murders. Where Harkins and Cooper had been camping also was an area that Mike left some of his traps, so he was very familiar with both of the areas. They figured that was like a huge important key in the case. That would give him reason to be in both of the locations that all of these people had been killed. However, the only issue in this case is that Mike never turned up. Mike was never seen, never heard from, nothing. His remains weren't found in this time period. They had absolutely no idea where he was. And because he was a skilled outdoorsman, they almost considered that he was living off of the land somewhere and thought that they probably would never find him. However, when I read this next part, I wanted to crawl under a rock, barricade myself in it, and never come out. Because in March 2011, a skull was discovered by hunters. It was only a mile away from where Diana's body had been found, and after much testing, they found out that that was Mike's skull. So that immediately dismissed Mike from being this crazy serial killer that they had originally been trying to find. They could not find any sort of weapon near him. They couldn't even find all of his remains. Keep in mind, this is between 1985 and 2011. A lot can happen between weather, other animals. He probably was scattered off throughout the woods at this point. So they had absolutely no idea how he had died. There was a hole that was in the side of his skull that could have been a bullet hole. Once again, weren't 100% sure and couldn't deem that as the cause of his death. So that leads to the question, who in the actual hell killed all four of these people? When they started comparing the stories, they even put the different pictures of the girls beside each other. The knots in the tube socks are tied exactly the same. They were both killed in almost the same manner. Both of the men were shot. A ton of people actually still think that Mike is responsible. So it could have easily been a murder-suicide. He was going through some sort of mental break and he killed the other couple, and then he decided he wanted to kill his girlfriend and himself. However, the thing about that is, how would he have gotten Crystal to the Kmart? And then at the same time, why would he even have brought Crystal to begin with? I don't understand why he would plan something like that, bring his daughter, and then what did he do? Did he go and kill Diana, walk Crystal the 30 miles to the Kmart, and then come back and kill himself? At the point that he would have gotten back, it probably would have been at nighttime at that point, so it would have been really hard to navigate the woods, so I just don't see him as having anything to do with it. Some people think it was a serial killer that targeted couples, had some sort of issue with couples with a huge age gap, because if you look at both the couples, there was a pretty large age gap. Mike was 36, Diana was 21, Stephen was 27, and Ruth was 42. So maybe it was a serial killer that just had an issue with people who dated people way out of their age group. That's a possibility. Some think it was a religious thing. Once again, going hand in hand with the extreme difference in age. Also, a lot of people think that Diana and Mike could have been a target because they did have a child out of wedlock. People think that Mike and Diana had actually been followed that entire morning, which would make sense and kind of fit with the campers. Maybe Ruth and Stephen had been followed. Maybe they knew that they would be there. Maybe the killer waited for Ruth to get up and go use the restroom. I find it interesting though that the distance between the bodies was around 1 to 1.5 miles each time. This was kind of like a crime of passion because both of the females were strangled, and like it's a very physical thing. It's an extended process, whereas the men were just shot, done, killed. It was very personal what this person did to the females. Some people question why the daughter would have been left, and I think that's a lot of the reason why people think Mike had something to do with it, because it would be one thing to kill his girlfriend, but you have a completely different connection with your child. However, you actually see in a lot of murderers that, and especially serial killers, that if their motive is not children, they're not going to kill the child. And a lot of people think that possibly Crystal had fallen asleep in the car on the way there, so the parents got out by themselves to go and look for the tree. Maybe they were cornered in the vehicle itself and the killer did not see Crystal in the back of the car. So a lot of people assume that maybe the killer was not aware of Crystal until afterwards and then noticed her and felt guilty and took Crystal somewhere, because the city that she was actually dropped off in was the last place on the specific highway it was on that was extremely populated. It was the last place that someone for sure would have found her. So maybe this person was trying to flee the area afterwards, obviously to get away from the murders he just committed, and just dropped her off at the best location that he could and then ran off. There's absolutely no telling, but the one thing that's pretty evident to me is that Mike didn't do it. I really don't think he did it, but then that means who actually did? There's literally a serial killer that could still be wandering around. This only happened in 1985. This could still be a fairly young person. There have been many people who have tried to link it to other serial killers, but this is a very, very specific thing. The tube socks were exactly the same. Everything was the same. I don't know. So I want to know what you guys think down below. Do you think the serial killer is literally still just running around the state of Washington or somewhere on the West Coast? Do you think that Mike did actually do it? What do you think? I want to know, because this is so incredibly insane to me, that they were chasing down the wrong person for so long. I would think, you know, if Diana was murdered and I couldn't find Mike, I would have suspicions at first until, you know, after a couple years, he doesn't show up anywhere. Then I would begin to think maybe he was killed too and they just hadn't found him yet. I think it's really shocking, honestly, that they tried to tag along with Mike being the killer and they kind of just deemed it as what it was and didn't attempt to find anyone else, because they kind of let this serial killer escape. So let me know what you guys think down below. I cannot wait to have conversations with you about it. It's my favorite part. Don't forget, you can always email me suggestions. You can give me suggestions down below. I love when you guys tell me what you want to see. I love finding things on my own and researching cases that mean something to me. I really want to make sure I'm doing things that you guys have an interest in. As always, email me, leave suggestions down below. Follow me on all of my social media sites. I talk to you guys on there all the time. I ask a lot of questions on there. I give sneak peeks to the videos coming up. I ask you guys what you want to see. I run polls. I do all sorts of stuff on social media. Don't forget to leave me all of your questions for my Q&A next week. Send me snap videos. Use the hashtag AskDanielle on Twitter, or just ask me down below. I want you guys to get to know me. It's super duper important. So please, please, please leave me your questions. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you have not yet, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!